Well, hello, and I think it's afternoon now, isn't it? So, my name is Elizabeth Terry. For those of you that weren't in the session this morning, I'm the Senior Manager for Community Engagement. And we have our panelists here today because we've heard time and again that when a QSA arrives on scene, that having an ISA on staff is like, they're relieved. It's like, this means they're going to be able to speak the same language. And then the assessment is going to be a lot more effective and efficient, as well as all the work that's going to be done there. So this is how we bridge the gap and speak the same language as your assessor. And today we're going to chat about how that makes it advantageous for both the assessor and the organization. So now we're going to meet the panelists. I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
So my name is Heidi Babi. I work for Mars Incorporated. I'm a CISSP, a PCIP, and an ISA. I've been doing this for I've been an ISA for about 4 years. I've been doing this for a lot longer than I'm going to own.
I'm Andy Barratt. I'm a VP at Coalfire. I feel like I've been a QSA since time began. I'm also a P2P QSA. I'm a PFI. I'm responsible for all of our technical solution delivery, so the 3DS, PIN, all the really kind of crazy, complicated stuff.
I'm Coralie Chevallier. I'm the practice leader of cybersecurity at Oaklen Consulting. I've been a QSA since 2018 and working with companies with and without ISA.
I'm Peggy Nolan. I am a recovering PCI ISA. I was an ISA for a little over 10 years at a level 1 merchant. I'm a PCIP, and I'm the CEO of Payment Card Assessments, where we help merchants achieve PCI compliance affordably, actionably, and achievably.
Okay, so we're going to kick off the session. I'm going to ask the QSAs. Can you share with the audience how organizations having an ISA on staff has made your life easier?
From my point of view, the ISA made our life easiest because they talk the same language as us. They have done the same training as us, they have the same experience as us. They know their environment by heart, so they know what they are doing. They are the main contact within their company for all the projects, so they have a good overview of what is done within the CDA. So they really are helpful. They have the same goal as us, doing the best for the payment security. So they do their best to work with us. And the second point, from my point of view, is that as they know the standards and they have done the same training, they know where to look for answer, where to look for what they are doing, and so on. It's easiest to maintain the compliance because it's one of the main topics when we do a PCI-DSS assessment. So by doing so, they know all the control and they know how to maintain their compliance. ISA are also kind of a challenge for us because they want to do the best. So it's like an internal QA, but with ISA. So they are trying to challenge us to do the best and to go further when we do an assessment. I have not done any assessment with the before version of the standard, but I'm looking forward to it because it would be really interesting to work with an ISA like this. Yeah.
Well, where do we begin? I also feel like we should thank my colleague to the left here for actually bridging the gap in English as well. I think there's a really superpower strength having an ISA on the team. My perspective, it changes the relationship from an assessor's perspective, from being a combative, in sometimes very complicated back and forth between multiple parties, to being more of a team sport. We can all be in this together. We can work on making sure the tasks are done, making sure the business as usual, operational stuff that the QSA is not around for gets done. And also, it's a healthy relationship. Many of you have been through a QSA assessment, and if you've not got the support engine of a team like the ISAs can provide, it can be really stressful. You get like assessment anxiety. It's a real thing, and people get really worried that the QSA is there to mark the homework. The ISAs can help everybody understand that this is, nobody's going to get fired. This is not going to be really, really painful for someone. And you can get through an assessment, you can do it well, and you can deliver all of the security objectives you're trying to.
Okay, so thanks for that. So I guess I'm going to be talking with our ISAs and our recovering ISAs, and maybe you can talk about some of those challenges or the challenging pushback that you've given with the assessors. But what's been your experience working with your assessor that you think would be beneficial for the audience to know?
So there's a lot. Like Andy said, where do you start? One of the things that I think is absolutely huge is the continuity across your assessment. So especially in large organizations or even in small organizations where you have one person that does a job, turnover is huge. So when somebody leaves the job, is that being picked up? Is that continuing? So are you staying on top of the compliance? I think somebody yesterday mentioned, oh, Joe did that, but Joe's not here anymore. So I think the ISA role really helps companies just to manage and maintain and be like, hey, this person has left. Who's picking it up next? Who do we need to make sure understands this? Who do we need to make familiar with all the documentation? We're there on site, so we can have input on business changes that may or may not affect scope. So just kind of get out ahead of that, so it's not a surprise when your assessment occurs, like, hey, whoops, your scope changed. And then the ability to defend scope. You know, I've sat with some assessors where we had some lively discussions about connected to connected and what's in scope and what's not. And then, you know, obviously overseeing business as usual activities. And then with PCI-DSS 4.0 coming out, getting out ahead of that so there's no surprises in the organization, making sure that the documentation is updated, making sure that they understand the intent of the requirement so that when the assessor shows up and asks for that evidence, there's no panic.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with everything Heidi said. I mean, she nailed it with some of the benefits that an ISA brings to the table. And some of the things that I want to add is that an ISA has the ability to improve processes and automate key control areas as well as the entire report on compliance or even self-assessment. You can automate those things. But without an ISA who's doing this day in and day out to look at where they can be more effective, more efficient, you lose that. So having that person who can see that is very important. They also help educate and train the PCI stakeholders within your organization, including the C-suite leadership. That was a big thing for me to go in. I got a seat at the table once a month with my CISO, and part of what I did was train her on certain things for PCI. There's also ownership of the overall continuous PCI-DSS compliance program within the ISA team, if you're lucky to have a team. Usually it's just one or two people. It brings stability. It brings effective efficiencies to maintaining and sustaining compliance. The ISA can help with internal assessments, meaning you have a new project that you're bringing on board. It's going to impact the cardholder data environment, but maybe the application developer doesn't know that. Or maybe the team that's upgrading a bunch of servers doesn't know that their servers are actually in the cardholder data environment. So being in those project meetings is very beneficial, and I used to attend almost all of them because it's very hard to back in to compliance. So when you build it in a compliant way that's secure, it's hardened, it's got logging, it's, you know, and it's added to the asset inventory, it's much easier to do it that way. And then you have the continuous management of scope from asset inventories to roles and responsibilities. You know all the key players, and they should know that they're responsible. And then most importantly, the ISA is really the buffer between the QSA and your system administrators. Andrew spoke about the anxiety that comes. System administrators get very anxious when they have to be interviewed by the QSA. So if you as the ISA can prep your system administrators with dry runs of those conversations, it goes a lot smoother. And then likewise, you want to make things easier for the QSA. You want to tee everything up for them so that when they come on to assess, they hit the ground running. So yeah, having an ISA on staff is critical.
I feel like it's the QSA time again.
Yeah.
I think the perspective I have is we've seen some of the largest organizations in the world use their ISAs to do compliance at scale. It's something we take really seriously at Coalfire. We work with organizations that can't afford to have, you know, the QSA mode of operation that involves, I'm going to sit behind this person. I'm only going to look at something now. Things have got to be planned well. It's got to be executed in a very tight time frame with sometimes global delivery and global operations. You just can't do that without a team on the other side of the fence. The ISAs then end up communicating, coordinating, and actually supporting all the different stakeholders that are involved in that assessment cycle. And it's unbelievably important. Like I've probably many ISAs that I've worked with in the community, and we end up almost feeling like we're on the same team now. Yeah. The job isn't just to get an assessment done. The job is to make sure everything's compliant. And I think that's a really interesting mindset shift. And having someone who's willing to focus on, I can automate some of this stuff. Let's have the QSAs focus on areas where we've perhaps got new business or we've got changes that we're not sure on. You can really make sure the focus is applied to the most risky areas.
Yeah, I do agree with what have been said. For me, what's important is what Peggy said about the buffer between the QSA and the team of the companies that we audit, because they are the main contact for everything that is related to PCI-DSS and the environment. So each time there is a project that might impact the CDE, this is the main point of contact. They will discuss this first with the ISA, and the ISA will come with a solution, and we will have just to have an open discussion of this solution. Is it the best for the environment or not? Is there any way that we can improve this type of changement? So for me, the buffer is something that is really important. That's the main point of contact for the company and for the QSA company, which is easiest also when we change the QSA in between two different assessments.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to Heidi. What's one key takeaway that you want to share with the audience today to solidify the benefits of speaking the same language?
So there's so many of them, but if I have to narrow it down to one, it's really the partnership between the organization, the ISA, the QSA. Again, it's the continuity, but then it's also, as you were saying, the trusted partner. We can help collect the evidence, so when the QSA shows up and asks for something, we don't fire hose them with information they don't need. They get the information that they need. It really streamlines the assessment. And then, as Coralie mentioned, you can have those conversations about new improvements and things that are changing, so that continuing partnership is really, really important, I think.
So having an ISA on staff allows organizations to move from that flight, fight, or freeze into business as usual. That's so important. And again, the ISA is going to look for the efficiencies to mature the program without sacrificing effectiveness. So we want to make sure everything's still secure, right? So even though you can streamline everything, you're not doing it you're not sacrificing the security of your cardholder data environment. And then there's just a lot to be said for in-house expertise. I mean, ISAs, we receive the same training as QSAs. We pretty much take the same exam. I think the QSAs is slightly different because you have a few different things you do that ISAs don't do. But we follow the same code of ethics, and it is that trusted partnership. That's what I had for 10 years with my lead QSA. It was great. But not only are the ISAs well-versed in the DSS, but we know the CDE. We know the cardholder data environment inside out and backwards. We know our network. I used to dream the firewall in Redmond does not, that sort of thing. So, and not to mention, but an ISA that has really top-notch project management skills. I'm a big proponent or advocate. If you have really solid IT security project management skills, you might want to look to your organization and say, hey, the ISA role might be great for me. But yeah, project management skills help make the compliance effort almost look effortless. Almost.
Almost. Excuse me. I like the effortless. The thought of this being effortless is super important. As probably a lot of you know, I've been a QSA for a long time, and in that time, I've seen a lot of colleagues burn out. I've seen a lot of people really struggle with the work-life balance. There's a lot of travel. There can be in some cases, there can be some confrontation, and it can be really difficult. And we've seen over the years, the QSA community is not really blown up ever. There's been a consistent, 2,500-ish, and it's kind of waved up and down. But the ISA community has really scaled out. And I think that tells you where the demand is for the permanency of those roles. But what it then does is it helps because there's a new community that can support the QSA and also become a QSA. You know, I was chatting with someone just yesterday about a potential career path, and he was looking at potentially becoming an ISA and maybe in the future being a QSA. That experience is unbelievably valuable for both people in that sense. But the thing that's then really useful is it gives you the bedrock. You understand, you know, the training's the same, but I think the fundamental Peggy touched on is that the ability for the QSA to rely on that individual as part of the team can't be overstated. When you're doing this against hundreds of thousands of assets globally, the QSA can't cover everything. Many QSAs can't cover everything. This has to be a team sport. And when it becomes a team sport, it gets a lot less stressful. We all win together, and you can build a very healthy culture for delivery of the compliance.
I like the idea of the team sport because when I do some PCI-DSS assessments, there is always someone that is a project manager for this program. So it's someone that knows the environment, that knows what he's doing, that knows the teams, that knows administrators, I know everything about the environment. And these people can be an ISA also, and they don't know about disqualification actually. So we are pushing them like go through this training, go through this exam because it could be really good for your career path. And it's also, like you said, a team sport kind of work that we are doing with them because they will have done the same training than us, so they will have the same key to understand the standards that a QSA actually, which is better for the company also.
So to wrap up, it seems like having an ISA on staff gives you that continuity, both internally to the organization, but also with the QSAs that are coming through, because if you're rotating the QSA, the lead QSA sends in the junior QSA or something, you've got that continuity there. And then you are the subject matter expert on your cardholder data environment. And so you are the one that's going to be able to provide that information and know who to talk to and where to go and be that buffer in between the assessor. So it's a really, ISA training and having someone on staff is really an investment in your staff and your compliance and means so much. And so especially with PCI-DSS 4 coming out, with all of the changes, this is going to be even more critical to have someone who's going to understand that and be able to chat with your assessor when they come on site if you've already started that process, which I'm sure everybody here has done that. So my takeaway is, you know, I'd love everybody to know is not only can you speak the same language between ISA and QSA, we've added knowledge training for the other standards that PCI manages. So if you're going through an assessment for point-to-point encryption and Andy comes on site, you take the knowledge training, then you're going to know what he's going to be speaking about. While there isn't an internal assessor type certification that's associated with that, it's a really great way to sit in the class with the assessors, learning what they learn. And there's an exam if you would like to take the exam as well. It's the same exam. But yeah, this is just really, really a great way. And then, you know, when you speak the same language, things are much easier. They're much more efficient. Things go a little faster. And it just makes everybody a lot less anxious about the whole process. So, and having that common understanding. So thank you all very much. This has been a delightful conversation. And if you're attending the assessor session later and you want to grab one of these folks to ask questions, please do that. Connect with them on LinkedIn through the event app, and let's keep the conversation going. So thank you very much.